The test box had sat unopened for 9 days. She still hadn't found the courage to look inside. Naomi Carter is Black, brilliant, and one of Seoul's top international family lawyers, married into an empire she never asked for. Her husband, Kang Min-jae, is whispered about as the Black Dragon of Seoul, a dragon tattoo coiling up the left side of his neck, a chain of 5-star hotels hiding an underground network he swore he'd left behind. Her wedding ring is thin gold and emerald. His watch alone costs more than her first office. At dinner, the room tilts around her. Her hand slips off the water glass. Only one person at the table notices, their 7-year-old son, Elias, a boy who keeps a notebook of everything the adults refuse to say out loud. His father doesn't answer his questions. He sends him away instead. Alone in that mansion, Min-jae finally asks his wife to tell him the truth. For 1 second, she almost does. But 60 miles away, in his grandmother's guest room, Elias is still building his case, and the woman reading it over his shoulder is about to recognize exactly what it means. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. The drawer clicked shut before Mrs. Cho reached the top of the stairs. Naomi pressed her palm flat against the wood, as if pressure alone could keep the box from rattling. Inside, beneath a folded silk scarf, the pregnancy test sat exactly where she'd left it 3 days ago. Still sealed, still unopened. She hadn't found the nerve to unwrap it, and she hadn't found the nerve to throw it away either. Mrs. Kang? Mrs. Cho's knuckles tapped the doorframe. You didn't touch your lunch. I ate at the office. Naomi turned, already smiling, already smoothing the front of her blouse like nothing lived underneath it. I'm fine, Mrs. Cho. Mrs. Cho's eyes moved once, fast, to the vanity, then back to Naomi's face. 20 years in this house had taught her which lies were worth arguing with. Chairman Kang asked me to check on you. Tell him I'm fine. She said it the way she'd said it 11 times in 18 months. Fine after the first one, in the bathroom of a hotel in Busan, blood on white tile and Min-jae's hands shaking harder than hers. Fine after the second, on a Tuesday, in this house, alone, because he'd been in Macau closing a shipping deal he later canceled and never rebooked. Fine after the third, 7 weeks ago, when the doctor had used the word again without meaning to, and the word had lodged itself somewhere behind Naomi's ribs and never left. She had gotten good at fine. Fine was a suit she put on over the emerald ring, over the silk robe, over the drawer she never opened in daylight. Downstairs, the dining room smelled of grilled sea bass and the candles Mrs. Cho lit out of habit rather than occasion. Min-jae was already seated, jacket off, sleeves rolled to the forearm, the dragon's tail disappearing into his collar. Elias sat across from him with a napkin folded into a shape no 7-year-old should know how to fold, studying his father over the rim of a water glass like a man reviewing testimony. You're quiet tonight, Min-jae said, not looking up from his plate. I'm thinking, Elias said. About? Mom's been putting sugar in her tea for 11 days. She hates sugar. Naomi's fork paused halfway to her mouth. I don't hate sugar, baby. You said it makes people soft. Elias's eyes didn't blink. You said soft people lose cases. Min-jae's mouth twitched, almost a smile, gone fast. He's not wrong that you said that. I've had a lot of cases, Naomi set the fork down. The room tilted, just slightly, the candlelight smearing at the edges like a photograph pulled too soon from water. She blinked it back into focus. Sugar helps me focus. She reached for her water glass instead. Her hand found the stem, missed the angle, knocked it half an inch before she caught it. The room tilted again, further this time, and didn't fully right itself. A ringing started low in her ears, thin and insistent, like a phone in another room. Naomi. Min-jae was already standing. She hadn't seen him move. I'm fine, she said, and her voice came out smaller than she meant it to, swallowed by the ringing. She gripped the table edge. The white cloth bunched under her fingers. I just need a second. Sit back, head down. His hand was at the back of her neck, firm, guiding. 12 years married to this man, and she still forgot, in moments like this, how fast the mask came off him. Chairman gone, husband arriving in its place in under a second. Breathe. She breathed. The ringing thinned. The room found its corners again. Across the table, Elias hadn't moved, hadn't cried out, hadn't done any of the things a 7-year-old was supposed to do. He'd pulled a small notebook from the pocket of his cardigan instead, the same notebook he used for what he called his case files, and he was writing. "What are you doing?" Min-jae said, not a question so much as a warning. Elias turned the notebook around and slid it across the table, like evidence in a courtroom he'd built entirely in his head. Sugar, 11 days. Naps, 4 this week, never used to nap. Almost fell down Tuesday. Almost fell down tonight. Won't let Dr. Yoon's number ring twice before deleting the voicemail. Min-jae's jaw tightened reading it. He looked up at Naomi, and for once she couldn't read what was underneath his face. Not anger, not quite fear. Something colder and more precise, like a man recalculating a number he'd trusted for years. "You've been listening to my voicemail?" Naomi's voice cracked, thin. "I read the screen," Elias said. "I don't touch your phone. That would be a boundary violation." He looked at his father. "Something is wrong with Mom, and nobody is telling me the truth, and I am the only one in this house keeping a record." Silence sat over the table, thick as the candle smoke. Min-jae folded the notebook closed and set it down, gently, the way he might set down something that could still detonate. "Elias." His voice had gone flat, decision already made underneath it. "You're going to your grandmother's this weekend." "That's not an answer. It's the answer you're getting." Naomi opened her mouth to object, to say he didn't need to be sent away, that she was fine. That word again, worn thin as the silk in her drawer. But Min-jae's eyes cut to her, just once, and whatever she'd meant to say folded itself back down her throat. Because she understood, in that half-second, exactly what he was doing. He wasn't protecting Elias from a bad night at dinner. He was clearing the house so that whatever came next, whatever she'd been hiding behind that drawer for 18 months, could finally happen without an audience of one very observant 7-year-old holding a notebook full of proof. Elias stood in the foyer with a duffel bag too big for him and a notebook clutched to his chest like evidence he refused to surrender. "You're making a mistake," he said. "Noted." Min-jae crouched to zip the bag the rest of the way. "Get in the car anyway. If something happens and I'm not here, I won't know what happened." Elias's voice didn't waver. 7 years old, and he negotiated like a man twice his age. "That's a bad strategy. You should keep your analyst close during an active case." "This isn't a case." "Everything's a case if nobody explains it." Min-jae's hand paused on the zipper. For a second the chairman's face slipped, and underneath it was just a father who didn't have an answer good enough for his son. He fixed the zipper instead of the silence. "Grandmother has the good rice cooker," he said. "The one that sings." Elias didn't smile. He reached up, unprompted, and hugged his father hard around the ribs. 3 seconds, no more, then stepped back like the moment had never happened. "Watch her," he said. "Not just tonight. Watch her." Then he walked out to where Han Do-yoon held the car door, climbed in without looking back, and left his father standing in a foyer that suddenly felt too large for 2 people. Dinner, this time, was quiet in a different way. No candles lit out of habit. Mrs. Cho had cleared the table early and retreated to the kitchen, sensing what the house needed was empty rooms. Naomi sat with a bowl of soup she hadn't touched. Min-jae sat across from her, sleeves still rolled, watching her not eat. "You could just say it," he said. "Say what?" "Whatever it is you've decided I can't handle." Naomi's spoon circled the bowl once, twice, going nowhere. "I handle things. That's what I do." You handle depositions, custody hearings. You don't handle fainting at your own dinner table. He reached across, closed his hand over hers, stilled the spoon. Talk to me. For a moment her face opened, just a crack, just enough that he saw something raw move behind her eyes, something that looked like 3 years of held breath finally searching for the door. Her mouth parted. Min-jae, The word caught. She pulled her hand back and pressed it flat against her sternum instead, like she was holding something in that had almost gotten out. I'm tired, she said. That's all it is. That's not all it is. Don't! Her voice cracked at the edge, sharp enough to surprise them both. Don't push tonight, please. He watched her a long moment, the calculation behind his eyes moving the way it moved in boardrooms, searching for the angle that would get him the truth without breaking the thing he loved most in the process. He didn't find it. He let go of the table's edge instead of her. Okay, he said, not tonight. But he didn't touch his own food either, and neither of them mentioned the drawer upstairs, or the 11 days of sugar, or the notebook now 60 miles away in a booster seat, already growing a second page. 60 miles away, that second page was well underway. Elias sat cross-legged on the guest room floor of his grandmother's estate, notebook open, a second sheet of paper spread beside it. A timeline, dates on the left, one-word notes on the right, drawn in a ruler straight line no 7-year-old should have had the patience for. Madame Kang Hye-ran stood in the doorway longer than she meant to before he noticed her. What is that? She said, not really a question. Evidence. Elias didn't look up. Mom's been getting sick since October. Small things. Nobody adds them together but me. Madame Kang crossed the room and lowered herself, without being asked, onto the floor beside him, silk trousers and all, a woman who hadn't sat on a floor in decades, doing it now without comment. She studied the paper. October, December, February, underlined twice. The word hospital, then crossed out and rewritten as doctor, softer. Her face didn't change, but something behind it did. She knew this shape. She'd drawn a version of it herself, 40 years earlier, in a house much like this one, before anyone used the word miscarriage out loud in her family, before her own mother-in-law had looked at her collapsed on a bathroom floor and called it weakness instead of grief. She had buried that timeline so deep, she'd told herself it belonged to someone else's life. Where did you learn to build a case like this? She asked. Mom taught me. She says facts don't lie even when people do. Madame Kang was quiet for a long moment, one finger resting on February, tracing the underline without pressing. Pack your things back up when you're done, she said, rising. Just this page, not the bag. She left the room and didn't stop at her own. She went straight to the study, closed the door, and dialed her son with a hand steadier than she felt. It rang once, twice, 4 times. She pictured him, jacket off, sleeves rolled, sitting across from a wife too proud to say the word that mattered. She pictured him not hearing the phone at all, the way a man doesn't hear anything when he's finally getting his wife to look at him. The call rang a 5th time, then dropped into voicemail. Madame Kang set the phone down on the desk, screen still lit, and stared at it the way a woman stares at a door she already knows won't open in time. Downstairs, in the entry hall of the mansion 60 miles south, Min-jae's phone buzzed once against the marble console table where he'd left it, and kept buzzing, unanswered, while upstairs the water in Naomi's bathroom had just begun to run. Min-jae saw the console table before he heard it. 4 missed calls, all from the same number, the study line at his mother's estate. He crossed the entry hall in 6 strides and had the phone to his ear before the 5th ring finished dying. Voicemail. He called back. It rang once and disconnected, his mother pulling it from her ear the second she realized he'd already dialed her back instead of waiting. Min-jae. Her voice had no preamble in it, which frightened him more than anything she could have said. Where is Naomi right now? Upstairs. He was already moving toward the staircase. Why? Elias built a timeline, October to now. I've seen this shape before, in my own house 40 years ago, and I let a doctor tell me it was nothing until it wasn't. Go to her, now. He didn't answer. He was already taking the stairs 2 at a time, phone still lit in his hand, his mother's voice thinning to nothing behind him. Upstairs, water was running behind the bathroom door, had been running for longer than a bath should take to fill. Naomi sat at the vanity in her robe, the drawer open in front of her, the sealed test resting in her palm like a stone she couldn't decide whether to throw or swallow. She had told herself she would just look at it, just hold it, not open it. Opening it made the waiting real, made the 4th time a fact instead of a fear. But she could hold it, could let her thumb trace the foil edge, could pretend for one private minute that she was a woman simply curious about her own body, instead of a woman who had buried 3 almosts in 18 months. The room tilted before she felt herself begin to fall. It didn't happen all at once. There was a gray narrowing at the edges of her vision first, the mirror shrinking to a coin of light, and some old, stubborn part of her recognized the pattern and fought it. She gripped the vanity's edge, knuckles white, and forced her spine straight the way she forced herself upright in depositions when opposing counsel smelled blood. Not here. Not on the floor. Not alone. She reached, with the last steady motion her body gave her, for the water glass beside the drawer. Not to drink, but to knock it, hard, so it would shatter against the tile and make a sound loud enough to carry through a running faucet and the closed door. Her hand closed around it. Her arm didn't obey. The glass tipped and rolled instead of breaking, a soft, useless thud against the bath mat, and the gray closed the rest of the way over her eyes. She did not let go of the test. Even as her knees buckled, even as the vanity stool scraped backward and her shoulder caught the edge of the drawer on the way down, her fingers stayed curled around the small foil box, pressed instinctively against her stomach, the way a hand goes to the one thing it has already decided, without asking permission from the rest of her, is worth protecting. Min Jae hit the door 2 seconds after the thud. Naomi! Locked. He didn't try it twice. His shoulder took the frame near the hinge, and the wood gave with a crack that would leave a mark on the doorframe for the rest of the year. A mark neither of them would ever paint over. She was on the floor between the vanity and the tub, robe open at the collar, hair fanned against white tile, one hand still fisted against her middle. The water kept running, indifferent, filling a tub no one would step into tonight. Naomi, look at me. Nothing. He was on his knees before he registered kneeling, 2 fingers at her throat, counting a pulse that was there, thin, fast, but there, and that single fact was the only mercy the next 10 seconds gave him. Her lashes fluttered, didn't open. Her lips moved without sound, shaping something that might have been his name, or might have been nothing at all, just breath finding a shape out of habit. Han! His voice tore through the house, a register Mrs. Cho had heard only once before, the night of the second miscarriage. Han, get the car, now, and call ahead to Yoon Seo-yeon. Tell her we're coming in. Tell her everything. Footsteps thundered up the stairs. Han Do-yoon first, then Mrs. Cho, apron still on, phone already pressed to her ear, dialing the number she'd memorized after the last time. Han didn't ask what happened. He scooped Naomi off the tile in one motion, careful of her head, careless of everything else, and Min Jae walked beside them down the stairs with his hand locked around hers, refusing to let the small foil box slip from between her fingers even now. Don't you dare, he said, low, close to her ear, as they crossed the entry hall toward the open front door and the black car already idling under the porch light. Don't you dare let go of me. Not tonight. She didn't answer. Her hand did, barely, one weak curl of her fingers around his, the smallest closing of a fist, agency reduced to its last possible unit and spent anyway, on him. The car pulled out of the gate before the door had fully shut. Behind them, Mrs. Cho stood alone on the front steps with both hands pressed to her mouth, the running water still audible through the shattered door frame 2 floors up, filling a tub that would sit untouched until morning. Min Jae didn't look back at the house. He looked at his wife's face, gray under the passing streetlights, her hand gone slack again in his, and understood, with a clarity that gutted him, that he had spent 18 months managing a war on the other side of the world and had missed the one happening 3 feet from him every night. The hospital's emergency doors swallowed the gurney whole, and a nurse's arm caught his chest before he could follow it through. "Family only past this point, sir. We'll come get you the second we know something." The doors swung shut. Min-jae stood in the fluorescent hallway with his hands empty for the first time in 18 months, staring at a door that had already closed, with no answer waiting on the other side of it. 40 minutes. Min-jae counted them in vending machine hums and in the number of times Han refilled a paper cup nobody drank from. Elias sat rigid in the plastic chair beside him, hands folded like a boardroom, asking nothing, which frightened Min-jae more than any question could have. Then the double doors opened. Dr. Yoon So-yeon crossed the hall with a clipboard against her chest, glasses catching the fluorescent light, her voice already flat and steady before she'd fully stopped walking. "She's stable. You can see her in a minute." Min-jae was on his feet. What happened to her? Exhaustion, dehydration, blood pressure that's been dropping for days and nobody caught it. Dr. Yoon didn't cushion what came next. And she's 9 weeks pregnant. The word landed and stayed there. Min-jae's hand found the back of a chair and closed around it, the way Naomi's had closed around the vanity 2 hours earlier, like the floor might not hold him without help. "The pregnancy isn't what put her on that floor," Dr. Yoon said. "Her body's been carrying something and hiding it for weeks, running on nothing, and tonight it stopped doing both at once. The fetus shows no distress. She needs food, fluids, sleep, and considerably less to carry alone." Elias rose from the plastic chair like the sentence had pulled a string in him. 9 weeks. He said it the way he cited case law, already filing it away. Due date's around March. She needs 64 ounces of water a day, 6 small meals instead of 3, 8 hours of sleep, not 5. "Elias," Min-jae's hand found his son's shoulder. "I'm making a chart." The boy's chin trembled even as his voice held its line. "She should have told someone. She keeps records for the whole family, and nobody told me the actual—" He lost the word he was reaching for, and the crack finally showed all the way through. 7 years old, falling out from under the tiny executive. Min-jae pulled him in, one hand flat against the back of his son's curls, his own legs no steadier than the boy's. "Now," Dr. Yoon said, watching them, quietly. Naomi was propped against 2 pillows, an IV taped to the back of her hand, her curls pressed flat on one side. She looked at Min-jae the way a woman looks at a door she isn't sure is still open to her. He didn't speak first. He crossed the room, sat on the edge of the bed, and put his forehead against her knuckles, IV line and all. 9 weeks, he said, into her hand. "You carried that alone for 9 weeks. I was going to tell you." Her voice came out thin, scraped. "After 12. After the part where it usually—" She stopped herself before the word fails finished forming. "After 3 times. He lifted his head. "You didn't want to hand me something you thought you'd have to take back." She didn't deny it. Her silence was the confession. "I wasn't scared of losing the baby, Naomi." His voice broke on her name in a way it hadn't broken on anything in 18 months of war rooms and body counts. "I was scared of losing you. Tonight, on that floor, that was the fear, not a test. You." "I know." Her thumb moved against his hand, small, deliberate. "That's exactly why I couldn't say it out loud. If I said it, it became real, and real things I can lose. 3 times I said it out loud, and 3 times the room went quiet after. I thought if I just carried it silently, it might get to stay mine a little longer before the world could take it. It's not just yours anymore." He said it gently, not as correction, as invitation. Elias, arms crossed at the foot of the bed, cleared his throat with the gravity of a man calling a meeting to order. For the record, hiding medical information from your case team is a procedural failure. A pause, softer. But I forgive you. This time only. Naomi laughed, the first real sound out of her in a day, and it cost her, but she let it happen anyway. By the time they brought her home near midnight, Elias had already taped a hand-drawn grid to the refrigerator door. Water, meals, rest, no stairs after 9 p.m., in his careful 7-year-old print, a red star sticker in the corner he'd clearly been saving for something important. The kitchen light was still on when a car door closed outside, too soft to be Hans, too deliberate to be staff. Madame Kang came through the side entrance in a housecoat instead of hanbok, silver hair loose for once, a covered pot held in both hands like something breakable. "Miokguk," she said, setting it on the counter. "I made it myself. Mrs. Cho tried to take it from me at the stove 3 times. Naomi, wrapped in a blanket at the table, stared at the woman who had spent a year testing her from a careful distance. "You made this?" "Seaweed soup, for the mother, on the day everything nearly went wrong." Madame Kang's hand stayed on the pot a moment longer than necessary. "My mother made it for me. I am late making it for you. I am sorry for the lateness, not for the soup." She ladled a bowl herself, set it down, and for once did not leave the room like an inspector filing a report. She pulled out the chair across from Naomi and sat. "Family," she said, "does not wait for permission to worry." Naomi picked up the spoon with a hand that finally felt steady. 9 weeks, 1 secret, 0 longer nights spent carrying it alone. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever said "I'm fine" at your own table just to protect someone else from your pain? Have you ever needed someone to notice what you couldn't say out loud? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about motherhood, silence, and devotion, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.